Hi, this is John Delancey, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Hello, and welcome to the Cinema Geeks, the podcast that is back and hopefully better than ever. Today, we're actually going to be continuing our long look at the career of Kevin Smith with a review of Clerks 2. But joining me on this adventure, as always, is Hard Candy Mandy. How's it going?
I'm here. Hey.
Kevin Optimus Solo.
I'm here, but not singing.
Oh, too bad. And Matt Fridley Sense.
We're all here this time.
Yay!
So there's a lot going on this episode, obviously. Before we get into the actual review of Clerks, we have some business to take care of. First, I think we got to send out a major congratulations to that of Amanda and Kevin. They premiered their film. They are officially married. I don't know. I was trying to think of a movie thing, but it didn't work at all. But major congrats to them. So we're back and now, more of a legal family since two of us now have a legal contract with one another.
And we do have to apologize because it's probably mostly our fault for the lack of content lately, but we'll fix that soon.
Yeah. But with this episode, we are getting back to our look at Kevin Smith. But one of the previous episodes, we finished our look at the video game series, and we put a poll out to ask what should we do next. And we wanted to give some few options, and the options we gave were Western films, silent films, through the AFI Top 100, and non-Miyazaki anime films. Obviously, these are pretty broad categories, so we're going to have to minimize it a little bit beyond this. But wanted to kind of go over the results because we did get a lot of votes on this poll, and we're curious to see what people would want us to do. So let's go from the bottom up. Not surprisingly, I think the one I put my choice behind, I don't remember, was silent films, and that showed up with 14%, with non-Miyazaki anime films showing up at 17%. But the winner, it was quite a battle for the top two spots, because that 32% was through the AFI Top 100, so winning it all was Western films with 37, and it was going back and forth, like between a few votes here and there. Eventually, Western films taking it off. So, how excited are we to tackle the monstrosity that is Western films?
I mean, I'm excited for that one. It's a genre that I've always enjoyed, but never really, for some reason, gotten into as in depth as I would want to. And I had already, before we even put up this poll, started doing some of the legwork of trying to figure out which Western films we would cover, and compiling some possibilities for you guys to look over and stuff like that. So I'm excited. I think there's a lot of different ways we can tackle that. It's probably the most broad of all the categories, but I think it'll present some fun opportunities for us to decide in which ways we go, and maybe sample different parts of different types of Westerns throughout. But obviously we'll have to have conversations about that. Amanda, what do you think?
I think this is the one I was going to have the most fun with no matter what, and I'm glad it won. I love Westerns. I grew up watching a lot of John Wayne and good stuff like that. So I'm excited to see what span we're going to have here. Are we going to have some new Westerns? Or are we going to have some definite old school black and white Westerns? Where are we going with this? I have no idea.
Oh, that's the beauty of it. Matt, how about you? How much experience do you have with Westerns, and what are your thoughts on getting into them for our next series?
Man, I don't think I've seen any of the ones that people consider classic, right? Like the Dude Without a Name, that was the thing, right? With all the dollars.
The Dude Without a Name, the Man with No Name.
I've never seen any of those. I've never seen any movie with John Wayne in it, or who's the other one? Clint Eastwood. I don't think I've seen a single Clint Eastwood movie. I've seen The Hateful Eight and There Will Be Blood. Those are the most Western-y things I've seen.
So nice, yeah. So if you're listening to this and you have, some Westerns you think that would have to be included, you kind of know our background. I have seen some more Westerns. I have seen, some of the biggest ones like The Searchers, Once Upon a Time in the West, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid is one of my favorite westerns. It's more of a, more modern, I guess modern's from the 60s, but there's still a lot I haven't seen because there's so many of them. So any ones that you feel like should be included on this, we're thinking probably a 5-6 film series, and we'll throw out some choices and we'll see where we go. We'll try to get a nice mix, maybe some old, some mid-years, maybe some newer ones. We'll go with that. But right now, we've been going through the career of Kevin Smith, and we've made it to Clerks 2. We've been doing every film up to this point, so including Clerks, Chasing Amy. So now we're kind of getting an interesting spot to Kevin Smith's career, I think, where we're seeing some changes. This is the first sequel he's ever written or done. Obviously, he's done films that exist in the same universe and characters that have kind of spin-offs with like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. But this is the first time, and he's going back to the film that made him. So I was kind of interested to see. I know, if I remember correctly, Amanda, you weren't the hugest fan of Clerks. So
No.
Does Clerks 2, change your mind? What were your thoughts of this?
I think Clerks 2 definitely held my attention way better than the first Clerks. I like that the production level is there. It's like bumped up, and you see these shots that are thought out and more developed and have depth. And I think that the wit is still there. That's what catches your attention and kind of holds you in. And I think some of the callbacks to the first one were made me appreciate the first one a little bit more. Not that I want to watch it again, but I like the tie-in and how they spun it. So right out of the gate, they do something to change up the scenery, and I liked it.
Interesting. I know, Kevin, one of your favorite parts of the first Clerks was Randall, the character of Randall. How did you feel about him in this movie and the film overall compared to the original Clerks?
He was still my favorite character in the film. He's my favorite character in the first Clerks, and he still was at this one. I was not disappointed with him at all. I don't know why, because obviously these were not, trained professional masters of their craft when it comes to the acting world. They're friends of Kevin Smith, etc. But for some reason, I just find Jeff Anderson's performance just more believable than Brian O'Halloran, who plays Dante. There's something just, I don't know, so. And I know this is what it was, but that's like grab your friend in high school and record your own movie and have one of them that just for some reason doesn't have any type of timing. I don't know. It just feels like stiff for Dante for me. So I just think Randall's a more smooth actor per se, and I like the lines that they give him. As far as overall, I don't know if I enjoyed the dialogue in this one quite as much as I did in Clerks, but I still appreciated the Kevin Smith aspects of that dialogue and kind of some of the things that they discuss and debate back and forth, etc. I think my only complaint for Clerks 2 is that I maybe could have done without the level of I don't know what you want to call it, the adult aspects
Raunch?
of it.
Crudeness,
Yeah, some of
the crudeness of it?
Yeah, some of the raunchiness or crudeness. I could have had that dialed back a little bit, but maybe that's just because I'm a grumpy old man now compared to maybe a teenager watching this. But overall, I still enjoyed it. I found a lot of the same things that I liked about Clerks in Clerks 2. So it was a positive experience overall.
So you're saying your bachelor party did not include bestiality at all? Is that
There was no Kinky Kelly appearance. No.
I'm sorry I couldn't make it to that.
Matt would have brought Kinky Kelly.
Oh, you know that's my role.
That's a mental image for you, everyone. Now, all right, Matt. So going into this, one of the biggest things we hear with Kevin Smith is obviously, and Kevin mentioned it, was the dialogue, and he's linked to a lot of nerd culture talking about things. It certainly comes up here with the big Star Wars versus Lord of the Rings debate that happens within Clerks 2. Does at all the climate of today in the way that back at this when this came out was somewhat refreshing. There was a more the atmosphere of those debates. It felt a little bit not as toxic as today. So does it seem at all strange seeing that type of does that impact the enjoyment at all now, knowing those type of debates that happen tend to get a lot worse with our social media culture compared to the back and forth that existed when this first came out.
Oh man, that's interesting. Like, did anyone in your circle of friends, like anyone here's circle of friends, see this movie when it was like brand new?
I did not.
I know some people that, like, I have friends that did, that were huge, like, Kevin Smith fans.
Because, like, I was super into Star Wars and Lord of the Rings when this came out, and I remember just being assaulted just in conversation constantly. People just, like, you know, people that hadn't really dived deep into either one of them, just sort of repeating what they had seen in the one Kevin Smith movie. And, like, it was wild to me, like, because it was toxic then without the social media, you know, like what we had in MySpace. Yeah. And so, like,
True.
Like, yeah, I guess, like, part of me, like, I didn't make that connection where it's like, oh man, this would have been even worse today, because I don't know if it would have been, or like, is this even worse? I guess I'm lucky to be, like, a white dude on the internet, like, so Star Wars is real safe for me, and so, like, I don't know that I get into this vitriolic conversations. Like, this almost looks worse in this than I experienced, but I know it's out there.
Well, it's interesting because you can look at it from one of two different ways. It could be something that you would think it would be worse today because of how, like you said, vitriolic or you know, people behind computer screens and keyboards, just the way they go attack people and stuff like that. But at the same time, if you're thinking about, like, real life, you could think that, like, walking around and being a Star Wars fan or a Lord of the Rings fan, or, you know, they talk a lot about Transformers, etc., it doesn't seem to me to have the same stigma it did when we were, like, the generation before us, like, and maybe even, like, the early parts of our generation, where, you know, some people might be embarrassed to admit that they were, you know, a Star Trek fan, a Star Wars fan, etc., because of the whole nerd being, like, a negative connotation type thing. And I feel like, you know, during our generation and definitely after, that kind of stopped being a thing. Maybe that's just in my experience, but so on one hand, people are a little bit more abusive or vitriolic, like we keep saying, but at the same time, you don't have to be, like, ashamed or afraid to talk about it and have discussions. So in some, like, the discussions are more realistic of going on in public now. But so I don't know. I could see it going both ways. I don't know if any of that made sense.
Yeah, I guess you're saying in the sense of being open about nerd cultures. I mean,
Right.
In large part because of Kevin Smith, is much more commonplace. Like being, you know, wearing you'll see anyone wearing a Captain America T-shirt or, like, a Star Wars shirt and think nothing of it, when at a moment in time it kind of put a stigma behind it. But overall, though, man, it's kind of getting back to the film itself. What were the overall just general thoughts about Clerks 2 and how it ranks up with his filmography so far?
Well, it's interesting because, like, I really wonder if a lot of Clerks 2 is reactionary to Jersey Girl, because, like, he does Chasing Amy, right? This romantic movie, like, rom-com, and it does well, and then he does Jersey Girl and it does terribly, and then he goes and does just another rom-com, but he sets it in Jersey. Well, I guess Jersey Girl's in Jersey, wasn't it, huh? But he sets it with the Clerks characters, and, like, it does infinitely better. Like, and it's very interesting to me, like, how many rom-coms he hits on and how that's not really what you talk about when you talk about Kevin Smith. And, like, I like that. I like a romance story, and, like, Clerks was almost the opposite of that, right? Like, you see a relationship breaking up.
Yeah.
And so I guess I like that aspect of Clerks 2 a lot more than the first one. And of course, the obvious, like, production quality going up as he moves along is a welcome thing.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I enjoyed Clerks 2 for sure. Some of what worked in Clerks 1 is certainly here. The characters, their conversations with one another, certainly, you know, the kind of the world that Smith is good at building. And I think you hit on something, Matt, regarding, like, how certainly he's saying, I think, a lot with this movie and the way that his kind of career is going. And in a way, I feel like even rings more true now, you know, where you have a character that's, like, you're stuck between what you know, what you're expected to do and, you know, you're in what you truly want to do, and how something is more perhaps respected and people will, you know, gravitated towards more. Obviously, Kevin Smith could probably direct a lot of studio films, make a lot of money, and probably get better reviews, but in a way, he wants to make the movies that he wants to make that are probably looked down upon by most people, by a lot of the critics, obviously. But are ultimately what he loves doing and how he's kind of caught in between both worlds. And I know, Clerks 1, Dante was, very much representative of him, and I think that's the case here. Again, where, I don't know if it's purposeful or subconscious or what have you, but you certainly see, I can definitely see the parallels between the plight of the characters here and then also, the career of Kevin Smith. I do think some of the stuff, it just doesn't work as well. Yeah, it does look better. It's obviously, you would hope over a decade of filmmaking and a much bigger budget, it would look better. And I think even Smith is trying to do a lot more with the camera. Thinking back to a specific scene where we have Randall and confronting once there's this big secret revealed regarding a baby or potential pregnancy. And it was, to me, the first time I really felt that Kevin Smith was really using an active camera, where he tends to kind of just keep it more static. And I even since then, for the most part. So I did feel like he was trying to bring out more. But I think there was also such an originality with the original Clerks. I think sometimes that rough around the edges part of it actually kind of helped it in a way. So I enjoyed this, but it to me didn't have what it had to say wasn't as refreshing and as, I don't want to say as edgy, but as unique as the original Clerks. But I think some of what made the original Clerks work is still within the fragments of this sequel.
Yeah, I agree with that in a lot of ways, Dan, because I think, the parts where it starts resembling Clerks, or the parts where, especially some of the dialogue or some of the discussions start to give you feelings or of reminiscing of Clerks, it's like it scratches the surface, but it never necessarily goes the whole distance that Clerks did. It feels like the conversations are kind of similar to those, but not as memorable, not that they were these revelations or anything like that, but just they didn't go as deep and weren't quite as fun. I think the closest that I got to that was maybe the end discussion where Dante and Randall are kind of talking about, especially, Randall is talking about why he enjoyed being at the Quick Stop and stuff like that. Kind of that friendship moment there was it's a little sappy and whatnot, but that's as close as it got to having a little bit more to chew on, where a lot of the other ones were just kind of surface commentary and joking, humor bits. So I felt like they didn't quite get into some of the debates that I would have enjoyed, or that I did enjoy in Clerks.
Yeah, I think kind of the ending in a way, near the final act got really messy, and it felt like a movie that it almost undercut itself. By having, Dante and, I can't think of the name of her character, Rosario Dawson's character, Becky. By having kind of them already have a relationship, and by having him already choose her, that final confrontation with Randall feels a lot less the air sucked out of it, because they're having a debate over a decision that he already chose not to make. So it's it feels a lot less impactful when it's you already know the decision he's made because he's done it already. So it felt like that scene just felt out of place, or it would a better script, or by structuring it a little better, it would have made more sense, because it seemed like they were arguing something that was in question 3 or 4 scenes ago, but now it seems like they've already kind of come to a conclusion. So that felt I thought that moment was good, but it felt like a movie that forgot exactly where it was.
I was curious. I agree with that. I was curious too what you guys thought about the character of Elias, because that's a character we have not seen before, correct?
I had fun with Elias. Yeah, we haven't seen him yet.
So did you guys like him? Did you find him annoying? Did you feel like he fit into this universe with the characters that had already been established and we knew well?
I think he was a good outsider for them to target, or Randall to target, rather. I think he was a certain kind of comic relief within what was going on, but he was also a catalyst for some crazy Randall situations.
Damn it, what do you guys think of Elias's character?
I wasn't the hugest fan, to be honest. I felt a little I don't say one-dimensional, but talking about like what made Clerks work, this is kind of a good example of it, where the characters were colorful and had personalities, but they felt a little bit more tied to reality, where his character felt like not that, and a little bit like more over the top than everyone else, and that kind of described the movie to me a little bit, where everything was a little bit more over the top than previously. I mean, there were some funny moments, and him and Randall did have a good back and forth, but overall, like, I think if they just added a little bit more or tried to round his character out a little bit more, I don't know.
What do you think, Matt?
I think I could agree with that. Like, he seems almost like a parody of a person. Like, it's very hard to believe someone could believe all the things he believes. But I do think also the back and forth is fun and interesting. And the final scene without words with him and the clerks is very cute and fun.
I was actually kind of surprised that like he hasn't done much since Clerks 2. I kept feeling like I knew him from something else, but I I kept thinking he was somebody else. What's his name? I can't think of. I'm forgetting.
Justin Long.
Yes, I kept thinking he was Justin Long. They just have a similar personality. See, I wasn't the only one.
Like, if you're in these like View Askew movies, you don't do anything else.
So, I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. Another new character you bring up was Rosario Dawson, obviously probably the most seasoned actor out of everyone here. We're in actual film. What did we think of her character and how she fit in with the other Clerks and the View Askew characters?
I was thrown off at first because for some reason in my mind all of the Kevin Smith films came out in the 90s. And even though most of them didn't. So like whenever I'm watching like Clerks or Mallrats or any of these things, like for some reason my brain places them in like, oh, those all came out while I was in high school or whatever it was. And I'm like, man, Rosario Dawson, like that was a long time before she was somebody. But no, it was 2006, so I'm just retarded. I liked her a lot. I liked her character. I liked the way that she kind of interacted with Dante and the rest. I thought she did a lot to kind of elevate their performances in a way and make them a little bit more or a little less awkward. If you want to call it that. So I enjoyed Rosario Dawson's character in this. Amanda, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, she was a cool, down-to-earth chick that played off of their humor well, and Randall's bullshit didn't faze her, so that was nice.
Apparently, some of the names that they were throwing around that were going to be her role originally, Sarah Silverman, Bryce Dallas Howard, Rachel Weisz. I don't know how you guys feel about any of those actresses in that spot, or if you think Rosario was the right fit, but
I could definitely see Sarah Silverman playing that role. Rachel Weisz, I don't think I've ever seen her do anything comedic in my life.
Right.
But I think definitely I could see it like actually Sarah Silverman probably even fitting the role a little bit better. But I liked Rosario Dawson. I mean, I think she's pretty much great in everything she does, and she can kind of play all the different roles. Like she can seem like your local girl and not feel out of place, even though she's clearly a more seasoned actor, but she doesn't ever feel like overact, or she tends to bring people up in the sense when she's going off of some of the people that don't necessarily have the same acting talent. But I thought she was a good addition. I don't know, Matt, if you had anything to add.
I just want to go back to the Sarah Silverman comment. Like, I don't know, man. Like, has she ever done like a really rom-com-y role? Because, like, I think if it were her, I wouldn't know which girl I was supposed to like, because I usually dislike her greatly in any role she's in.
Yeah, she's been in a bunch of, mumblecore types of movies. I think there was one with Michelle Williams she was in. She's done a lot of more low-key films, especially last, 5 or 6 years or so. Like, she was in the Book of Henry. I'm trying to think of other things she's done. I can't think of the movies she was in with Seth Rogen and stuff. I think she's certainly capable of playing that more laid back, just take this waltz is the movie I'm thinking of, where it wasn't a romantic comedy, but she was certainly not like the Sarah Silverman personality you think of when you think of her more of a comedic role.
Okay.
You haven't seen Book of Henry yet, Matt?
I have not.
See it.
If it's a movie, I probably haven't seen it.
I think one of the biggest questions, obviously, is that, does Clerks 2 need to exist? Which is, I think, maybe a weird question to ask, but does it feel like, looking at his filmography, where it's coming, that he had something to say and it was purposeful, or does it feel like he was just trying to get his career back on track by going back to something he knew well? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know if it was necessarily necessary, to be redundant, but I think that it was well timed as far as, he did a bunch of films like that in the beginning, and then kind of it seemed like he was doing some other things, stretching his wings and doing some of these rom-coms that we've mentioned a couple times. So I think it was a nice touch to, especially probably a lot of his fans, to kind of go back and give him something that harkens to the original one. The question is a Clerks 3 necessary? Because apparently they did a script for that.
Oh, they had it way beyond script. It was just one of the two clerks dropped out. I want to say it was Randall, and he said he's not doing it without both of them. They got real far into production. They talked about doing a TV series too for a while. It was going all over the place. Or was that Mallrats?
That
was the Mall. That was Mallrats. Yeah. That one was a whole other issue where he tried to buy. Like, he was going to buy back the rights because he didn't actually own the rights to it, and the company that bought out Miramax, won't sell the rights to anything they own, even if they're never going to use it. It was a whole thing.
Interesting. Anything else? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, I actually want to continue on what he just said, that I don't think Clerks 3 is necessary, which is a weird thing, because if you'd asked me, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, I'd have been like, yeah, I always want more. But after this, I don't know, my 4th or 5th rewatch this has to be, I don't know that I need more from these guys. I'm glad we got the second one, because that first one did not have a happy ending, and it originally had an even less happy ending. And, I like that, these guys get that happy ending in their 40s or whatever. If they came out, I'd watch it, but I don't think I need it.
Amanda?
I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of, Dante. I feel like he's always meh, he's blah. So I really can't get into, his plight. Yeah, Randall is funny, but I think he's just a turd and useless.
A turd?
And so I really don't need any more of them. No. This, I think, bumped up the duo. If Clerks 2 didn't exist, I think I would have been down farther on the first Clerks. But them together, I feel as a whole, they're okay. I don't really seek them out though.
Yeah, I think this is fine where it ended. And I don't necessarily think, again, I don't necessarily, but I do feel like, that it did seem like Kevin Smith did had something purpose to say, that this was probably something I don't know if he ever had it planned, but it certainly, I think, felt like a good place for it because, it extended to not just these characters, but I think, what he was trying to say about where he was. And I think Matt brought up the good point earlier regarding, having Jersey Girl being what it was. He certainly, I know he's spoken a lot about that and how it was a disappointment, where this felt more comfortable and it felt like him getting back to the world he knows and what he wants to say. And I'm curious to see, where it goes from here, because obviously he's taken a much different direction with a lot of the films after this. And we see that with Cop Out, which will be much different, obviously, because it's...
Oh, is that next?
Yes, that's next. Anything else anyone wanted to bring up before we bring this episode to a close?
I feel like this was the middle movie in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where we're just walking to the next better film.
It's kind of funny for a guy who makes fun of movies for all walking when his movies are all talking. So it's just yeah.
Yeah, any film that has discussions involving Transformers and GoBots, I'm a fan of.
You just like the line where they made fun of GoBots.
I actually like GoBots. I'm a GoBots defender, so it hurt a little bit, but I like that they at least acknowledged they existed.
Kevin might have been Elias when he was younger.
I didn't believe in the what was it? The
Trolls.
I didn't believe in the Trolls. I wouldn't have been that gullible.
But you did like GoBots.
I did like GoBots and Transformers, though.
All right.
Millipants, stop it. I'm surprised at the rating that this film got. Actually, it got a like 60 something on Rotten Tomatoes, 65, somewhere in the mid 60, 63, which was pretty good, and it made a bunch of money. So, like Matt said, it was definitely successful on different levels. Whether you look at it from what he was trying to accomplish, or whether you look at it from a critic standpoint, or even from financial. So. I'm surprised that a lot of sequels and a lot of stuff like that kind of falls flat. So I'm surprised at how positive people were on it.
Yeah, I mean, considering Jersey Girl was 42%, and I guess certainly it's which honestly was higher than I expected, because like how much that movie got lambasted, but I also liked it more than I anticipated too. So, all right, well let's go around and do final grades and final thoughts. Amanda, let's start with you.
Oh dang, I'm gonna give it a 3.
Wow.
Out of 10?
You weren't that scathing when you were talking about it.
I have not a lot of feelings for it, and I don't know. The humor didn't work on me. I'm not big into the Transformers. I like Lord of the Rings, but not enough to barf for somebody messing with me about it. So, I don't know. I'm just ready for other films.
Thanks. I'm a little higher than Amanda. I think I would give it like a 6.
Matt, how about you?
I think I'm gonna go with a 7. Like I like that it rounds out the story that we already started, and it's got the elements I like in a movie.
Yeah, I'm about a 6 as well. It was, like I said, I don't have anything hugely negative to say. It just felt like, it was like hearing a joke you laugh at again, and sometimes you laugh at it again, sometimes you don't. But I went into this. I remember hearing really bad things, but I'm like, actually, this works for the most part. So there we go. As I mentioned, we're getting into Cop Out next. Has anyone seen Cop Out before?
Yes.
Cop Out's not next, actually.
Oh, it's not? I thought it was.
Nope. We have, unless I have something wrong here, I got Zach and Miri Make a Porno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is before Cop Out.
Dang.
I'm looking at the wrong. I'm looking at the writer section. That's why, because he didn't write Cop Out, so it didn't show up.
Yep. So 2008, Zach and Miri Make a Porno.
There we go.
Hopefully that doesn't involve donkeys.
Well, funny. That's one I have seen. Haven't anyone else seen Zach and Miri?
Yes.
It's gonna be the first one I haven't seen.
Oh,
no.
You're in for a treat.
Am I?
No. You see way too much of Jason Long. Is that his last name is Long?
No. Well, that's weird that you're calling him Long.
I mean, that's the name you're calling
Seth
him,
Rogen, you mean?
So what does that mean?
I'm Finna.
Why
No, the Jason dude.
It's not Long.
Justin
Long. Jason who? What's his name?
This is going on. Are you talking about Jason Sudeikis? Who are you talking about? Jason
the Jane
Schwartzman?
Silent Bob dude.
Oh.
Jason Mewes?
Jason Mewes, yeah.
Yes.
No, you saw him in this last movie.
Justin Long is in the next movie, so just.
I was gonna say Justin Long is in the next movie. I'm so confused.
That was a happy mistake, you guys.
Jason Mewes, we see a lot of Jason Mewes, is what we're saying.
Too much.
All right, as we indicated up front, if you're in, we'll be doing our Western series next. So if you have any Westerns you want us to focus in on, let us know. We'll come to a conclusion. Maybe we'll put out some more polls between some of the decisions that we come up with on our Twitter. So check that out at Cinema Geek Cast. Amanda, what is your Twitter?
At Hard Candy Mandy, eyes, no eyes.
Kevin?
At Optimus Solo.
And Matt?
I am at Fridley Scent.
And I am at Movie Revolt. Thank you for checking out this week's episode. We'll be back more, we promise, very soon as we continue to look at Kevin Smith's career. Next time, getting into Zach and Marie Make a Porno. Thanks for listening.